Well, thank you for staying with us on the AM show. You know, here, we are blunt. We say it as it is. You like it, you don't like it. I meet a lot of people out there who say this or that, but we do what we do because we're passionate about the brand called Ghana, the red, gold, green, and the black. But as we continue today on Founders Day, we want to have a conversation on Ghana. Everything Ghana, as much as we can, with our guests. Now, in the studio, we have Dr. Abusakara Foster. He's founder, National Interest Movement. He joins the conversation. He's also the 2012 presidential candidate, Convention People's Party. He's here with us in the studio. And we have other guests that we'll be introducing to you shortly. But I'll start with Dr. Abusakara Foster. Thank you, Doc.
Ben, good morning.
And happy holiday.
A happy holiday to you, and congratulations once again on Founders *S Day.
Yes, I was about to stress that. For me, it's a founder for me, and it will always be *S, one founder for me. Well, you can't force me to.
You know, the sun rises from the east and sets in the west. If we decide to call the east west, it will still rise from the same place.
Nothing will change.
Nothing will change. So I don't even believe that every Founders Day, that should be the focus of our, discussion. What is the state of the founding?
Yeah.
Where have we got to? And what has it been worth? And what will it be worth in the future? Those are the areas that we should be talking about. A reflection on Founders Day, of the sacrifices people made, and whether we are making it worthwhile to have made those sacrifices. Those are the issues that we should be talking about today. And I believe that we'll have a good conversation on that.
Let's talk about, you've lived for a very long time in this country.
Indeed, since 2005, right. And then, of course, until I was 12, before I went abroad for my studies in the UK, I was here. And of course, even during my entire 27-year professional life, I kept coming back and forth. Made sure that my kids at least went to school here for about 5 years to make them properly Ghanaian. And they have schoolmates. And that's very important, because otherwise you grow up as a...
It's an integral part of socialization.
Absolutely.
That people often...
Absolutely.
And then when they've been there for so long, they're odd. You know that thing about secondary school?
Yes.
SHS, all of that.
Yes.
If you miss certain things, it's difficult to integrate moving on.
Absolutely.
You don't have... I go to places and... Oh, you're an old vandal. Yeah, sharp. That kind of thing, that camaraderie. And if you don't have that, it's problematic.
It's important. And also it's important for people's sense of identity. True. To know where they come from. And one thing that provoked this, it's good to tell it on Founders Day, was that we had our national football team come to Zambia. And of course, we, the expatriates, we received them. We made a long convoy of 50 cars, made noise, took them to the stadium. But we fed them fufu beforehand, and we were beaten 2-1. Even Kaunda got up to come and see how a few Ghanaians managed to dominate the whole stadium. Wow. So we went home with our tails between our legs, and it was all quiet. In those days, it was fantastic to beat the Black Stars.
Was that before the days of
these are the
80s?
These were the 80s. At that time, Kwalisha was a young man.
Was young. Yeah.
And the next day, for having beaten Black Stars, not one Kafo, just beating Black Stars, they gave them a float along Cairo Road, going up and down. People were jubilating. And all my staff in the office went to the window to watch the float. So when I came out, they all went back to their days. I said, no, go ahead. So I went home early, only for my daughter to rush home. Daddy, yesterday we beat Ghana 2-1. And I told my wife, it's time for her to go.
It's time for her to go to Ghana. Now she's identifying with the Zambians.
Yes, because you identify with wherever you live, you see. So it's very important to ground them. And I think that sense of grounding is good not only for the younger people, but also for ourselves. At this stage when there's so much confusion in the world, all the things that we held sacred are no longer sacred. Yeah. It's good.
The world is almost on its head. Yes. It's a topsy-turvy world.
Absolutely.
Now, everything, it's almost as though everything you knew was no longer like, it's as though the script had been flipped.
Yes.
And now you're reading things
The
converse
fundamentals have
man.
caught up with us.
Yeah.
The
fundamentals have caught up with us. I like that play on words. But speaking of the fundamentals,
Yes.
I was deliberately talking about how much time you had spent in the country because you're not one of those. Yes, you've been out there, but you've spent substantial,
Yes.
lengths of years in Ghana.
Yes.
You've seen many regimes, many governments come and go. And I call what we see now a misleadership. What do you see in Ghana today? You've lived in other countries. Comparatively, what do you see in Ghana? And again, comparatively, with everything we've been blessed with. Sometimes you struggle to find what Ghana doesn't have. Small country, yet we have everything from water resources, mineral resources. Now we've even discovered lithium. We have iron. We have bauxite. We have everything. And the human resource, thankfully, we have a large population, a youthful, vibrant population. Yet, look at where we are. And I have this document, Ghana at 100. As the conversation goes on, I will share some of what our aspirations are and run them by you, whether you think these are even feasible on our trajectory. But what do you see when you picture Ghana today?
I see a glowing ember.
A glowing ember.
Of a flame that was once bright. But nonetheless, it is still there, glowing in the dark. And all we need to do is reignite it. The nation will achieve what it's supposed to achieve. But if there is no attempt to reignite it, then we have a problem. Because the glowing ember will dim and dim and dim. And the fewer people that see it, the less hope they have of reigniting the nation back on the course to putting it where it's supposed to be. Many of the people that I have been here with have left. Some came and left. Some came, stayed for a while.
Your contemporaries.
And then left. Yes. Expatriates who came and, and there was a time, I must tell you this, there was a time when, as an expatriate community in the diaspora, we felt Ghana was abandoned. Then, over a period, we came to a stage where now Ghana was ready to take off. It was like a plane sitting on the tarmac, waiting to be given the clearance.
Readying itself, yeah.
Then, slowly, the air hostesses got down. The pilot got down. Even the wheels of the plane were removed. The drinks were taken to kiosks to serve people. And the passengers began thinking, maybe it's time to get out of the plane. Because that time when we felt Ghana was about to take off, that time when we felt that if you don't come here, you miss out on something, that time has passed. Now people are telling their kids who are abroad, don't come home. Stay where you are.
Yeah, that's the rhetoric now.
I mean, let's
speak
be
to
honest.
a lot of people,
Yes.
and they are. In fact, I have colleagues. I say
Yes.
it all the time.
Yes.
Some of my colleagues,
Yes.
my contemporaries,
Yeah.
these are doctors,
Yes.
nurses,
Yes.
pharmacists,
Yes.
accountants,
Yes.
engineers,
Yes.
who have all left the shores of
Yes.
Ghana.
Yes.
Sometimes they tell me, Ben, you have all these linguistic talents, all these languages in your toolbox. French, Spanish, Portuguese, a bit of this and that, German. You have law, you have political science, international relations, a bit of the business. Why are you still in Ghana?
Well,
It's always difficult explaining to them because they in a way, they see it as a bit of, it's a bit of,
Well, it's
difficult.
No, it's not that. I mean, when you walk into this studio, you smell the air of patriotism. That is why you are still here. And the truth of the matter is, if you won't pound the fufu, who should pound the fufu for you to come and eat?
That's the question.
So some people have to do it. And I think that people who have been blessed, who have the opportunity, should invest more here. It's very sad for me when I look at the profiles of many countries to see that the richest people do not invest in the productive sectors of the economy. They rather actually safely keep the money in trading or put it outside. We have to create the atmosphere where people invest here. And the biggest investment that you can make in Ghana is your children. When you encourage your children to come back here, and because of who they are, their name, or the political color people have put on them, they cannot achieve their full potential because they're always cramped, not given opportunities because of the right political coloring or because of the right ethnic background, then they begin to wonder, why am I here? You see? So those are the things that we have to get rid of. And when we talk about Founders Day, we have to remember how we were founded. When we were founded, we were given a sense of nationhood, where everybody was the same. Whatever we say about that period, we cannot deny the fact that that first republic created the most patriotic group of Ghanaians.
True.
At the same time,
Unrivaled.
at the same time, it also contained the biggest betrayals of the nation.
Yeah.
You know, so this mixture is always there, and it is the yin and the yang, and you always have to strive to make sure that the strive for the common good overcomes those who are working for the selfish parochial interests. And that is why it is very important at this time, on this Founders Day, to think carefully about the kind of democracy that we have. This is the state of our nation. What are the prime driving factors that have brought us there? And we all know that it is the kind of adversarial democracy that we chose to adopt. Right from the foundings of this nation, people couldn't agree. And the storyline goes that there's so much disagreement, we have to break the pot and make it again. So how do you carry water if you are willing to break the pot because you don't like the color of the pot? And these are stories that must be told in their real context so that people get it clear in their head that it is never a good idea to break the pot from which you drink just because you have a disagreement. All around us now, we see fires, Burkina, Mali, Niger, etc. Why is this happening? Why are people choosing to re-break the
And that's an interesting bit,
Yes.
because it started in the 60s, post Ghana's independence.
It stopped for a while.
1966,
Yeah.
February the 24th.
Yes.
And then there was a bit of a, there was a trend.
Yes.
And it stopped. I mean,
Yes.
up to the 80s,
Yes.
these things were
Yes.
still happening.
Yes.
Then that was cut.
Started again.
And then it appears across the swathes of
Yeah.
countries
Yeah.
across the continent
Yeah.
started adopting
Yes.
democratic
Yes.
dispensation,
Yes.
subscribing
Yes.
to the ideals of
Yes.
democracy.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it has started again. It tells you that the people have lost something.
That democracy has failed us.
Democracy has failed us.
That the kind of democracy we have chosen to practice has failed us. Why? It has led to exclusion. It has led to disempowerment of the masses. It has led to a very extremely partisan society and polarized society. And it has led to the cultivation of an elite political class who have an entrenched self-interest in the preservation of the status quo, thereby eliminating possibilities for a change in the status quo through the democratic process. And when that happens, it becomes like a volcano where there are no dikes. There's only the central chamber. Democracy is like the dikes in a volcano. When the pressure builds up, it diverts it into the dikes. But when there are no dikes and the dikes are all blocked, it blows the top of the mountain off. And that is a process that, whether you like it or not, will happen. And we have to think of our society as human beings in a laboratory. Just like you have physical reactions, chemical reactions, we have social reactions. If the society is managed in a certain way and frustrations are pent up and opportunities are denied, and there is an elite class suppressing the rest of the people, then of course you'll get certain reactions. It is standard. It happens everywhere. It doesn't matter about the color of the people. It doesn't matter about their ideology, etc. And these are
that was the reaction we saw with the Arab Spring.
Yes.
Those are some of the reactions we're seeing in other African
Absolutely.
countries.
So these are things that we should reflect on deeply on Founders Day. Where are we? What is the pressure in the nation? Are we giving the right kind of vents for these pressures to be released? Are we creating opportunities for other people to feel included? And is the political system delivering? Or has it just become a dance in the park?
Before I move on to Dr. Asar Sumaila Mohammed, he's a development expert at the UDS. Before I get to him, just on something you said, I want you to quickly talk about it. You say democracy has failed.
I said the kind of democracy that we are practicing has failed us.
Okay.
Yes.
Because we know of that ideal democracy of the people, by the people, for the people.
Yes.
The question is it of the people, really? Is it by the people?
Exactly.
Is it for the people?
Yes.
But I'll ask you then, if not democracy, then what?
Well, this is why we have to redefine. You see, it's not a question of democracy or something else. If the kind of democracy you're practicing has failed you, that is a very partisan democracy, creating this elite blockage, then you have to redefine that democracy so that it works for all of us and not just for a few of us. And the only way of doing that in a proper legal manner within a democratic society is to pursue the legislative route. We have to make sure that people are sent to parliament, not to represent parties, but to represent people. So we have to start building a cadre of independent parliamentary candidates that can go to parliament as independent parliamentary candidates on a reform agenda and fight for that agenda tooth and nail. And if, as you have seen in this particular dispensation, just one MP is able to hold sway in parliament, can you imagine what 5 seasoned, substantive, self-made parliamentarians will do in a parliament that is very close? Can you imagine the agendas that they will change? But if we all put this aside, and every day people are running up the ramp, wanting to achieve the presidential and falling back, then nothing is going on at the parliamentary. And that is the beginning of the place where we need to redefine the democracy. So as we are going into this election, I am hoping that we will have a body of people that are thinking critically about how we redefine this democracy through seeking a group of independent parliamentary candidates, self-made people, are you and me, people committed to a reform agenda, and so that we can have the kind of reforms we want. Listen, it will not be overnight. Anybody who promises you that there will be a substantive overnight change, has smoked something this morning, are you with me? Unless of the kind that we don't want, But if we begin the process as a journey that will take time, but we will achieve significant results step by step. They say the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is that going quickly in the wrong direction is much worse than going slowly in the right direction.
Interesting words, food for thought. Let me bring in Dr. Asaya Sumaila Mohammed. We're also joined by Dr. Asaya Sante, and he is a political scientist and head of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. But to you, Dr. Asaya Sumaila Mohammed, this fourth Republican experiment, we've had the First Republic, Second Republic, Third Republic. Now this is the Fourth Republic, the longest we have had, uninterrupted. What do you make of it? Has the Fourth Republic delivered? And on a day like this, when we celebrate, for me, the Osadefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and the others, because there were even women who aided this cause, and some people spilled their blood. We say Nkrumah never dies, but I'm putting it practically to you. Nkrumah's dream for Ghana, I think, is dead in the water. And some people subscribe to that. So does Nkrumah live on after all? I know Dr. Abu Sakara Foster will have a take on that, but that will be later. To you now, Dr. Asaya. You would have to unmute, sir.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so good morning and then happy Founders Day to all and my senior, Dr. Kwame Asante. And all.
Morning, sir.
Good. Very interesting day and a very interesting topic. I think we have been discussing this issue for a very long time now. And then the purpose of our discussions has always been bordered on the challenges that we, as a nation, we have not been able to do the right thing to become a nation. I've always tried to go little to my little political science, and Prof will correct me. But at independence, the two things that you achieve is sovereignty and power to control your resources. And we're in the hands of the colonialists who, by the purpose of colonialism, came and then conquered us in our minds and in our administration and control our resources. And that was the purpose of colonialism, to extract and then go and build their nations. We thought at the point, led by our founders and then the leaders of our country, and then being masterminded by Kwame Nkrumah, that we needed to stop that, because we as human beings on earth also thought that it was important to control our resources and have an identity. And that identity that we now call Ghana was to make us proud that we belong to a section of the world, and therefore we can control our resources and develop ourselves. Now, after independence, the purpose of independence is where we are now struggling for. Yes, the founders of this nation, and led by the ideals of Kwame Nkrumah, got it right, that after independence, you needed to change the ideology of the people in this country. And then I'm young, probably did not have the opportunity to attend those ideological institutes, but we heard, and then those ideological institutes were there to establish and then imbibe in the citizens the culture of citizenship and the sense of ownership of that sovereign nation that we acquired from the colonialists. That particular moment was the moment that we needed to continue. The longevity of that period was the challenge. We were not able to elongate the process of inculcating into the citizens to have that feeling and ownership of the nation. Now, somebody asked me somewhere, does anything called Ghana exist in us? That question is quite tricky. When you wake up in the morning and then they say, or somebody say you have won a jackpot, $1 million, not to go into the one that was found in the bed somewhere, $1 million. And they ask you, what will you do with it? Many Ghanaians will not mention to pay tax. They will probably go straight to buying a house in the UK or in Europe. That is where we are getting it wrong. Now, the state is our own. Then understanding of what is Ghana among Ghanaians, we have a challenge. Because one, if you say you're a Ghanaian, it means that you own the Ghana. If anybody is found to be stealing money from Ghana, you'll be angry with that person, even if it's your father or your mother. Because collectively, we have contributed to gather that resources, whether from sale of our gold, diamond, forest resources, or oil, or any source of funds that comes into this country. It's for we Ghanaians. But unfortunately, we don't have that in mind. So if somebody is found to be corrupt and then he's stealing money, and then you are the beneficiary of it, you say hallelujah. So unfortunately, the ownership of the state or the nation called Ghana is seen more as an abstract, but not a reality. And that's where we are getting it problematic in our current practice of democracy, because it is like winner take all. So if you are able to win power, then you have absolute control of the resources, and you will now decide what you want to do with it among your cronies.
It's like they will teach you in political science. There's this, I think Dr. Asa Asante will be able to get it for me, who says, then you get to determine who gets what, when, and how.
When and
How? Exactly.
Aaron Laswell.
Yes,
Laswell. And yes, and it continues like that. So now the question is, I share a simple experience that has guided my thoughts for a very long time. I worked more with the NGOs in the past, with Care International, with the EU, and a number of programs. And there was one particular incident. I visited a colleague. He came to Ghana. At the time, I did my national service at Kotoka International Airport. And I had access to going to the arrival, departure. And this particular time, he came. And then he came with some 2 phones. When he came with the 2 phones, I was able to go to the Kotoka International Airport And then with my relationship there, I got him out with the phones. Apparently, he was bringing the phones for his girlfriend. What did I do? I aided him to evade tax. Is that not so? This same person, I went to Denmark. This same person that I visited in Denmark, we were to take a tram rather, from one point to the other. In fact, we got it wrong. We didn't buy the full ticket. So we bought the ticket, and when we got there, he said, no, we needed to go to the next stop. Then I said, oh, then we are just moving to the next stop. He said, no, we need to buy the ticket again. Because if you don't do that, the trains cannot run. You know what he was telling me? That I was stupid, and I was really a stupid man. I felt stupid at that material moment because I never protected Ghana when he was in Ghana. So that is in us. And among a lot of us, you have been given the responsibility to guide how much gold is taken from Ghana. They give you a V8 and then $100,000, and it's enough to allow the mining company to underdeclare how much gold is taken from Ghana. And that's what is happening. I don't think we debate about this.
Oh, no, we shouldn't, because, I mean, there have been times when even one country like India or the UAE will say, this is what we got from Ghana by way of gold in a year. And yet our total year exports of gold to the whole world will not amount to that. So you ask yourself, where did it go?
Where did they get it? So these are the things. So I'm saying that at independence, the power that was given to us, or the power that we received from the colonialists, was to allow us to have control of our resources and our destiny. And that's why along the line, we started thinking about decentralization, started thinking of development planning. We instituted the National Development Planning Commission. So we're able to plan our resources so that we'll have a destiny. Now, you asked a question. I was in a conference in Germany about 4 years ago. And you know what? We're thinking about how Germany can plan their energy in 200 years.
200 years?
200 years.
And just a few years ago, when we were talking about planning for 40 years, we were told we are looking too far into the future.
Exactly. And let me just tell you the basis for that. Now, Germany at a point has been relying on what we call lignite. Lignite is the next stage to coal in the formation of the hydrocarbon. Now, lignite, if you take, let's say, one room full of lignite, you get the same energy like one bucket full of coal. Now, Germany had been mining the lignite, and they realized that if they allow the lignite to stay there, in the next 200 years' time, it will turn to coal. So if you go to Europe and in Germany in particular, you see them having a lot of alternative energy. And that's why this Russia-Ukraine issue, and then Germany, you understand that Germany will not really push far, because they rely a lot on Russia for gas, which is another source of energy. But apart from that, they have a lot of alternative energy sources like wind and everything. Now, what are they thinking about? 200 years for the sovereignty of Germany to become dominant in the energy sector in the world. And Russia is controlling the world because they have power of their resources. Now, at independence, what did we do? We initiated all this. Nkrumah tried it. Nkrumah said, look, the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it's linked up to a total, the liberation
of the African continent.
Because Africa, naturally, by God's creation, is endowed with a lot of resources. And therefore, Africa needed not to go anywhere to look for any alternative energy. Unfortunately, we are going around looking for alternative energy. River Congo was going to give us a lot of power. But even within Ghana, look at the plants Nkrumah had. The Bui hydropower. Look how long we took before we constructed Bui. Another alternative one at Palgu, we are playing chess with it and then playing football with it. And today, no funding, tomorrow, no funding. Meanwhile, every day, every year, we complain. Next month, we start complaining about the Bagre Dam spillage. So the question is, do we have an agenda as a group of people to also dominate another group of people? That's another point I want to come in. In the development history and development theories, what we come to realize is that any country that is developed or is in the path of development have always thought of also dominating another person. Just think about it. Any nation that is seen today as powerful has, at a point in time, led by its people, visionary people, thought of also dominating another country in terms of resources. Britain did it, and then that was the theory of colonialism. Why did they go to colonize Africa or other parts of the world? They moved from the theory of mercantilism. They were doing merchant businesses, and then they were going around. They realized that while they were going around selling their merchandise, they saw other resources in other countries. And therefore, they realized that those countries were weak in terms of culture and they can change their ideologies. So they started coming in with the theory of what? Colonialism, which was powered by anthropology.
Because Doc, I'm sorry I have to do this, but because we also have a bit of a time situation, round up so that I can also bring in Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that a group of people decided to look for independence. The purpose was clear, that have control of your resources and then have agenda for your generations to come, so that your generations will also become powerful and respected in the world. Unfortunately, after achieving the independence, the generations or those who took over after Kwame Nkrumah thought that Ghana was not a place to live their lives. So a lot of politicians come and take the money and rather find their way in Europe and America to go and have their homes. That ideology of seeing Ghana as a place to go and harvest and go somewhere to live is where we are today.
Let me now bring in Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. I would like your take on the Fourth Republican experiment and that tag, Nkrumah never dies. But I am positing this morning that with the death, maybe physically we remember him, but with the death of his dream for Ghana, maybe that dream is dead in the water, and maybe with Nkrumah together with it. What are your quick thoughts on that? Because I want quick reflections, and then I'll take you into the Ghana at 100 document so that all of us can get into it. Many people don't have this. They don't know what even the plan is. But if this is our plan and we find ourselves where we are, how do we get there? Like Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew. How do we do it? So let's start with the Fourth Republican experiment and whether Nkrumah's dream is still alive. Doc. Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante.
Ben, good morning to you and good morning to your viewers. Yeah. Can you hear me? Is it okay?
It's okay now. It was patchy at first, but it was halting.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Right. Good morning to you and good morning to my colleague, Dr. Asah, very close colleague, and then the rest of your viewers. I must say that I support and I acknowledge the place of Nkrumah in the life of Ghana. Nkrumah, the statement that Nkrumah never dies is not but and the description of what Nkrumah was and continue to remain in the annals of this country. I have no doubt in my mind. But before also through into this conversation about the Founders Day, it is a beautiful concept, but I think that I acknowledge the immense contribution of Nkrumah and how far he has brought us. There's no doubt, and his contribution can never be shoved under the carpet. But there are others who also contributed same towards the cause of freedom and the cause of building a better society for ourselves that we will call today the modern Ghana. We can make mention of a few people because time will not permit us to go through the whole gamut of all those who contributed. But one of the people whose contribution must be recognized and acknowledged by the people of this country is King Aggrey, who was a king of Cape Coast, who stood his ground firm that he would not allow the British to have their way in Cape Coast, that the Cape Coast belonged to the Fanti people, nothing more, nothing less, for independence, and of course, a better Ghana one day. That this person was grabbed, taken to Sierra Leone, manhandled, and they brought him only for him to come and die. Nobody has acknowledged King Aggrey. It's unfortunate. And if this country wants to make sure that people emulate their leaders and contribute their quota effectively towards the building of this country, people like Agri must be what? Acknowledged.
That's
People like
just a quick
who
point,
organize a lot of people.
Just a quick point. I just wanted to say that does acknowledging them necessarily mean we must have founders with an S and all of that? Look at places like China, look at many other jurisdictions. They celebrate one person. It's not to say that it is that one person who, gave birth to everything and that everything is around that person. But in this context, the picture has been painted that some people brought Nkrumah into the country and all of that. And so some of these things cannot be overlooked. I was mentioning earlier, Doc, that even there were women who supported, they are rarely acknowledged, who supported through their money, through different industrial, mechanisms, the cause of independence, yet they are not celebrated. Then the list would be endless.
There is a need not to celebrate them. My whole conversation is that however small the contribution of others, it must be acknowledged. That is important. So we are saying that when we single out Nkrumah, then it becomes a little of a difficulty, even though acknowledge the immense contribution of Kwame Nkrumah towards the building of, the modern Ghana. I have no doubt in my mind. But I want the same to be extended to others who also contributed, such as what Nikwa Braboni, who
Doc, are you done with that submission? Okay, the connection is frozen. So we'll try to reconnect. Maybe if we can get him on the phone, I don't know which would work better. But Dr. Asar, Dr. Abu Sakara Foster, let me read. So Ghana is 66. Mm-hmm. In 2057, 34 years' time, we'll be 100. Imagine a 100-year-old Dr. Abu Sakara Foster, a 100-year-old Dr. Asar Sumaila Mohammed, a 100-year-old Dr. Asar Sante, a 100-year-old Benjamin Akaku. What would you aspire to? What would you have wanted to maybe have achieved as a person? And then let's put it side by side with the portrait of Ghana. This is a document I'm reading from the NDPC, among others, and following through the Fourth Republic, what the plan should be. Now pay attention. By 2057, the document says, it is envisioned that Ghana will be a high-income country with the following minimum characteristics. This is the bottom line. 1, self-confident citizens with high standards of patriotism, anchored in discipline, good work ethic, who put the welfare of country above self-interest. 2, nominal GDP of approximately, this will get you, $3.4 trillion, and per capita GDP of not less than $50,000 equivalent. Resilient, service-oriented, industrialized, and globally competitive economy. A business and financial hub in the West African sub-region. Modernized agriculture. Minimal income disparities. Robust pension schemes. Affordable and diversified, I am just truncating some of them. Energy supply. And this one really got me interested. Effective, efficient, dynamic, and inclusive institutions that ensure accountability, integrity, and transparency with negligible levels of corruption. This is 9 out of the 18 that are listed.
Well,
what do you think?
First of all, when we talk about Ghana at 100, it's really not about us. It's about our successor generations and what life will be like for them. And it is our opportunity now to make that life as good for them as possible at that time. So the decisions that we make now is really what will be reflected there. And therefore, in looking at this vision for Ghana at 100, which is really a plan, the question then is, where are we now? What are the things we are aspiring to? And what is stopping us from getting there? And how can we make up that gap? The fact of the matter is that some of the targets that you have mentioned are clearly now not achievable. Because if you have
if you look at our GDP now,
GDP of 80-something billion,
it is less than, it's about 2.9% of
trillions,
what this figure is.
Yeah, so how do you make that gap? If in 66 years it has taken you that time to get to 80 billion, how do you then jump in 40 years to trillions?
34 years, actually.
So that is a big issue. And what have you done now to lay the foundation for you to make those jumps? Other issues related to welfare of people, etc. If now we see that most of the economy is, outside the formal sector, how much of it will be coming into the formal sector so that all that planning actually is addressing things instead of you making plans that is not addressing the larger body of things outside it. So that is also important. If you talk about inclusiveness, we have drifted towards a situation, a democracy in which a lot of people are excluded. You only go to cast your vote. And essentially, people are saying, look, they're not even interested in voting anymore because it makes no difference. Of course, we can't have a democracy which survives like that. We have to rekindle it and open avenues so that people feel that, my vote is worth something, even if it is just on MPs who are able to hammer on your particular cause and get it heard in Parliament. Now, these are things that we need to orchestrate. If we don't orchestrate them, it is not going to happen.
Okay.
And there has to be the commitment to do it, and there has to be the resolve to do it. That resolve is not seen when we are steeped in corruption. That resolve is not seen when we are steeped in an electoral process that is driven by money. That resolve is not seen when you have a system that excludes so many people from poor backgrounds. God does not distribute brains according to the money in the parents' bank account. He endows each person with his own opportunity. And when a country is not tapping the brains of its poorer people, it is losing out a lot because you don't know who is going to be the next Einstein.
Yeah, and that is the whole point.
Yeah.
Let me bring in Dr. Asante back into the conversation, even as I also walk through some others that are put here for that we can aspire to. Efficient, affordable, and equitable first-class social services at all levels. Social services. Low levels of unemployment and underemployment with decent work opportunities for all. Maximum application of science, technology, and innovation in every facet of society. And let me leave this for now. Sustainably managed land, forest, water, air, and biological resources. Now look at our water bodies. Look at Galamsey and what it's doing to us. Dr. Kwame Asante, back to you now on the phone.
Yes. I want to take the opportunity to deal with the first part you posed to me, but because of network challenges, can I come to it quickly before I...
Yes, very quickly, Doc.
Right. If you look at the question of the Fourth Republic and how far we have come in terms of the ideas or the aspirations of those who founded Ghana, all right, I can say without fear of contradiction that we have deviated from what the founders set for this country. We're looking for two main things: political freedom, economic freedom, and then to be boxed up with what? Social freedom. Let's look at the issue of political freedom. Yes, issue of what? Freedom is a very difficult commodity to come by in this country. We pay lip service. Our actions and our what? Inactions point to the fact that we are not ready to allow freedom to exist in this country. There have been all manner of efforts that we have done through what, covert and overt means to prevent people from enjoying the freedom that their forefathers envisaged for this country. Issue of justice, is it something that we can be proud of in this country? We have had challenges. If you read the literature from the think tanks and all that, yes, justice we have, but with some difficulties. How far have we done or contributed to dealing with this problem? Issue of governance, it's a problem that you have leaders who are arrogating to themselves all powers that they even don't have, where Constitution proscribes them from or prevent them from exercising certain type of powers and all that. They move beyond this because the Constitution is tailor-made for them and they do what it pleases them. Issue of what? Probity and accountability, because within the political freedom, we're looking at what issue of what? Probity and accountability. We've made it what? Fine, document that is the Constitution, and if you look at the preamble of the Constitution, probity is a part of what? The preamble. But are we ready for probity? Are we ready for accountability and all that? Anytime people take on, people who hold political power, that the conversation is that it's from opposition and it's from people who are disgruntled and the rest of them. But issue of what human rights, do we have that? The ability for people to develop to become the best of themselves for the society. Is that a case that we have here? There are people, anytime it rains, they have no place to lay their head. But it's a basic human right, the right to shelter. People don't have water to drink. And from the Fourth Republic up to date, there are a lot of places like that. People go and fetch water at places where animals also go to drink water.
Right.
It's fair for exercise. So also look at that. Look at the economic freedom. Is that what our leaders envisage for us? They envisage a society where we'll be able to put all our resources together and manage in such a way that it will improve the lives of people. What are we saying? We have to move on from that time and then, going down on the line of poverty. We are in abject poverty. Issue of the economy has never been very strong for this country, and then it has affected means of livelihood for people. Look at the young people parading the streets of Ghana without jobs. And all that we hear from government is nothing but rhetoric and banding the whole place up with figures that do not make sense to anybody.
Right.
The issue of development, all right? A government will come to office, develop a plan that will help us to chart a path of development. It will be thrown away in the name of what? For political expediency and all that. Are we doing a service to the dreams and aspirations of what our forefathers? Is it the case? I strongly believe that it's not the case.
Let me just do this. I mean, our time has basically run out, but as we conclude, and I'll start with you, Dr. Asah, when you look at the vision again, it couches it, Ghana the rising star, Ghana at 100 vision, democratic, inclusive, self-reliant development country by 2057. There are 4 pillars, and these are the pillars. Government, peace, and security pillar. I will not elaborate. Economic pillar, you can imagine what will be under that. Social pillar, and then environmental pillar to, protect our environment and ensure that it is managed in a sustainable way. What do you see currently, and how do we improve it, in simple terms, to make Ghana that Krabeshe, that land of promise that we all want it to be? Dr. Asah, so I think I'll apportion it a minute to each of you, and we can wrap. Obviously, this is a conversation that we'll always have a lot more time for. Dr. Asah Smaila. Again, you have to unmute.
I would say, as the Germans did, after the Germans broke up and then united, and then after they lost the Second World War, they told themselves that they've lost the war. They admitted that they lost the war, and that was the beginning of the reconstruction of Germany. And then from 1994 up to date, when they united, Germany is the largest economy in Europe. At a point in time, we have to agree that we have failed. We have a lot of challenges in our development trajectory and an agenda. Let us pause. Let us restart the thinking and then the conversation. Let us agree that we have made a lot of mistakes. Let's pause and point out where we have made the mistakes and correct ourselves and start. I don't think Ghana is for those living today. It's for the future and the future to come. Let us create the opportunity for the future, citizens to come and take over as Nkrumah and Co did. We, at the point, truncated their agenda, and then we are at where we are today. And in doing so, one of the key things I think we have to understand is that
gentlemen,
God
1 minute, please. So try and manage the time. 1 minute. So try and manage.
And gave us all the resources that we made mention of. Let's see how best we can judiciously use them. Don't let strangers come and steal our gold and then pollute our water. You talk about the environment, and all these we need to look at. One important I cannot stop without saying is to reduce the expensive democracy that we are running. Be frank with you, the troubles that we have today are as a result of the fact that people spend so much to get to power, and then they must steal the state resources to pay back their loans or wherever they got their money from. So people go to work in public service as ministers or political appointees, not because they love Ghana, but because they have seen that as an opportunity to make money. People who by their individual selves could not raise 1,000 Ghana cedis today are raising millions of dollars. I don't think they are getting those money from anywhere. What you and I we needed to use to solve all the problems that we have talked about, the youth unemployment and all those ones, creating of the jobs and all that. How can you allow one person to make that money? You know what the person is doing?
Okay,
He's
Dr.
mortgaging
Asa,
Ghana.
thank you. I see your passion, but we have to end it
Yes.
at some point. But I think we get the thrust of what you're saying. Dr. Abusakara Foster, interestingly, he talks about future generations. In Norway, they have a fund, I think since the 90s, that has been there for future generations, the oil resources and all of that. They are thinking of the future. Here, even the future, we are destroying now. Your last words.
First of all, we have to accept that as a successor generation to the founders, we have not lived up to expectations. We have fallen far behind the expected schedule. The reasons for this are clear to us. We have been willful, self-indulgent, and at the end of the day, concerned only with self-gratification now. Those things don't make for patriotic nation building. Whether you call it ideology A or ideology B, they are racked with indiscipline, theft, and a lack of ability to stick at the job.
Right.
Now, what we must do now, you, the younger generation, those of us in our 60s, we have only 20% shares left in the company called Ghana. At most, we get to our 80s. Those of you who are younger, who have the majority shareholding in the company called Ghana, stop asking the older people what to do with it. You are the majority shareholders. Take a grip and make sure that we change the trajectory of this Ghana. And we do it using the democracy we have, but fighting very hard to make sure that the legislature performs its duty.
Okay.
So more of you should get into parliament, not on the backs of political parties where you'll be whipped into line with whatever the executive wants, but go there as independents, community representatives, talk to the people, convince them that we are ready.
Okay. Interesting, very interesting thoughts you've shared. I'll wrap with you, Dr. Asa Asante. You also have a minute, and then we draw the curtains on the conversation.
When you look at the few thematic areas you gave out, that governance, economic independence, issue of
social, and then environment.
Social, and then environment. I will want to look at it this way, that you need the ABC of all. One is the accountability. That having all the ideas, the dreams and aspirations and all that, you need leaders must be accountable for what they do. That for whatever they do, one day they have to account. Once we begin to have that firmly placed in our mind, we begin to work at it, and the end result will be what? Efficiency and productivity. We need, so governance aspect, need to get all the basics right, and then make sure that we are accountable. We are accountable. The B is what? Getting all the basics of all that we are talking. Basis of governance, the right formula is there for everybody to see. We choose the one that will work, and this part of what? Getting the basics right. And then for what? The economy, for social, and then for the environment. And then what? The C is that we must be consistent of what we are doing with the hope of what? Realizing our vision. Once we get this ABC, right through all these thematic areas, I'm sure at the end of the day, the story will be different and Ghana will be better off.
Ghana, Dache, Obefan and Tuma Pefra, and that is what we pray for. Ghana, the land of the warrior king. That is our name. It's a powerful name, land of the warrior king. And here we are. We can't even fight our own battles. We need the IMF every now and then to fight for us. Joining us for this conversation, we had Dr. Abusakara Foster. He's beaming at me right now, founder, National Interest Movement. We also had, joining the conversation, Dr. Asa Sumaila Mohammed, development expert at the University for Development Studies, and Dr. Kwame Asa Asante, a political scientist with the University of Ghana. Now, stay with us. Coming up next, we have a conversation with Translight Solar. They'll be telling us a lot about what they've been up to. We'll be right back.